questions I needed? Okay, so sorry, this is a meeting of the ARPA Commission on January 9th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. People who are missing are uncomfortable. Mike. So the next one is correspondence, and we don't have any. And I had sent to you guys an email that Donna had sent with projects to close, which is the next item on the agenda. And the reason why I put them before the public hearing is that if we take the action to close these, at least we'll have some money to come back. With you. Just a minute. Move to close ARPA.
Just for clarification to people, it's the storage box for evictions that came in under budget. The other one was bring UR Community Cares to Willington. And then ARPA 36 is the retention bonuses for the fire department. So those are all fully paid and closed. So all in favor of closing all three of those? Please say aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, so with that said, we're gonna move on to the public hearing. And just before we do that, I just wanted to tell you guys really quick because just so we all know what we have to consider. Right now, of that project and the returning of that $95, we are just close to $158,000 available to spend. So that's something that we could appropriate even after the end of this meeting, $150. We expect another 115 to come back once we close other projects. And it could even be more than that, or maybe less if some projects are over budget, but we're not hearing that that's happening anywhere. So, so basically we are talking about $290,000 in requests today. So just keep in the back of your mind that we can't fully fund everything. We are shy about $17,000, and we definitely can't fund everything in the short term. We maybe could in a couple of months or in 6 months, but so for that reason, when we go through these, one of the things I'm going to be asking is how soon they need to be done and how ready the projects are to be done, because if they're not quite ready, those are something we could put in the out category, soon category. So does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so the first item on the list is ARPA 39A, which is a repair of the library building structure, the retaining wall. And I believe library's here to talk about it. Yeah.
Do I need to stand someplace so people can see me?
They can see it. You're there.
Okay, you're here. For those of you who don't know, I'm Karen Coble. I'm chair of the library board. The library building now is 16 years old, and there have been some concerns. We did have it tested. The foundation is not a concern. It is not crumbling. We do have some places where the stucco on the outside of the foundation has broken off that we would like to just patch in order to prevent water getting between the stucco and the foundation. But the biggest concern with this request is that the deck outside the children's library is a masonry deck that is over 2 stories high. It needs to be okay, give me a minute, grouted. Sections need to be recaulked. The concern is the height of the wall is so high that we've had water pouring down it and it has done damage. The railing, the safety railing around the top is no longer properly caulked in, so it rattles. And because it's outside the children's library, we are very concerned for patrons. So that is our biggest thing, is we would like to get that fixed. And so the request was to have caulking done, have a mason come in and take a look at the stones, have blocks replaced as needed, have mortar, that's what I wanted, mortar replaced as needed, and do all the cleaning that needs to be done, taking pieces of caulking and mortar that are already there out and then replacing. So the request that we put in assumes that the library itself will clean the wall first. There is moss growing on it, and that we would clean it and power wash it, and then the company would just fix what needs to be fixed. Okay, the request that we put in was a quote that we got back in June, which was for 11,000. The company has suggested, due to inflation, that it will probably be more like 13,000 to get that work done. Any questions?
My only question is, if we were to award the funding today, would you be able to get started on it? And when do you think it could get wrapped up?
Provided the weather holds up, yes, we could get started on it immediately, and it shouldn't take very long. The quote we had is from Mountford, the people that originally built the building, and they said once they get started on it, it would take a few weeks to do the work, depending on what damage. It may take longer if they find more damage.
Can I ask the mason at the table, is that something that could realistically be done right now in this weather and these temperatures?
I wouldn't recommend doing it
Yeah.
unless they tarp it and heat it. I mean,
No,
there's
my
huge temperature.
my actual request on most of these, when I wrote up my stuff this afternoon, says should wait till warm weather in spring, should wait till warm weather in spring, should wait till warm weather in
It should
spring.
be done.
That is on almost every one of the
Yeah.
So you're ready to go with it, but it wouldn't be done now. I just
right.
wanted, okay,
We are ready to go, but it would require them deciding that the
Okay.
weather was okay to do it.
And would they have to get other quotes too? Because or is it under 20?
Donna?
Would they have to do the competitive bidding?
Our ordinance is $5,000.
Mhm. We tried. I will be perfectly honest with you. We tried to get competitive bids.
But you'll have to when you
Right.
move forward.
So these were presented with the only bid we got back. Once if we are told that this request could be approved, we will go beat on some heads and say, you gotta get us these quotes.
Yeah, okay, so if it were awarded now, then you'd go up, start the bidding, and probably would be spring before.
Right, it
Which-
probably
which
would
is-
be anyway.
Okay,
Did you have a question?
Yeah, so you're gonna do this, so this was bid on, so you're gonna do the power washing and the cleaning of the moss.
Mhm.
But then you said that if there was more damage, are they gonna come back and give you a price on it? I mean, power washing can do quite a bit to masonry, depending on what the power
Yes,
wash.
yes, I
So
do
that's-
know. We are really hoping that the only thing that we have to be concerned about is the top layer where the moss is growing. We need to scrape that and power wash that. I am not at this point planning on power washing the entire 2.5 stories because I don't want to do any more damage. I know what power washing did to the wood on my house.
Yeah.
oh, sorry, I need my glasses on to see. Ralph, you have your virtual hand up?
I do, with respect to the repairs to the north wall. I would put the cleaning on the contractor, because if the library employees do that work and it fails in a couple of years, there's a strong possibility the contractor is going to blame it on improper prep, which goes back to the cleaning. So I think it would be wise to include all of the work, cleaning to finish, on the contractor, and not share the work. I think
It's just the contractor we talked to would not put it on their quote. They said it would have to be done before they started work, but we will do that. If this gets approved and we send it out for bidding, we will put that in.
Okay. Any other questions? Any comments from anyone in the public? No? Oh, right. Oh, I can't see Joan. Hi, Joan.
This is your lucky day. No, the issue is getting more contracts. This is not a big enough job for most of the companies that do this kind of work. And Deb's called all kinds of people, from bricklayers to contractors, et cetera. And that's what's happening. So Montour built the building. They have a vested interest or emotional interest in keeping the building in good shape. And he was out there today looking at it again and talking with us. So they're very well aware. I don't think we're going to get much better than this, very honestly. I think that because he is interested, not just a disinterested person, he's going to be very fair with his prices. Okay.
Okay. Anybody online? I don't see any virtual hands. Okay, well then we'll close the public hearing on that item and we will move on to the next one, which is ARPA 39B, repair of library building structure, parking lot bollards. And the original request was for $8,100.
And Mountford, as Joan just said, they were there today. They have, what did you say the original request was?
8,100.
Okay, they've upped it to 9,600. The light poles at the library are very, very close to the curb, and they have been hit on a regular basis. And the cost of getting them put back up has become outrageous every year. The idea would be to put up barriers around them. The other suggestion was to move them back away from the curb, but that would be a major, major project and wouldn't, the way the lights are, wouldn't shine the parking lot properly anyway. So the idea here is simply to put up some type of barrier around the light poles to prevent them being knocked over on a regular basis.
Okay, and this is based on one quote as well, right?
Yes,
And is this same situation as the retaining wall? You would probably get started in the spring.
as long as the ground is frozen, we can't be digging to put bollards in. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've got it down as being spring.
Okay. Any questions?
How high are they gonna be?
I have on this list that they are 7 feet tall. I don't know how deep they have to drop them, but my guess would be that it's going to be at least 4 feet above the ground.
And how many are going around each light pole?
There's 13 that have been ordered, and there's 3 light poles, 4 light poles.
We have 7 light poles. They all will receive bollards if we don't do like the rocks. And certain ones, at 3 different places where those light poles come down most often, like where the director's parking lot is, when you first enter into the library, you know, the entryway, that would have 3. Where the sidewalk is, that goes from the parking lot, you know, to the sidewalk to the front of the building, that would have 3. Those are the ones that get hit and have gotten knocked down the most. So there would be 3 on those 2, for example. The other ones would only need 2. I think that, let's see, 2, there's 7, so 13. Yeah, there were some that just needed 2, and then there were 1 or 2 that would need 3.
Did you say you ordered them?
Pardon, I'm sorry.
No, they haven't been ordered.
Okay. I didn't,
Nothing been done with
that's
them.
what I heard, right?
Too, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, nothing's been ordered.
Oh,
Okay.
gosh, no. We
All right.
won't do that, no.
So they're gonna go right on the edge of the curb?
They have it, well, yeah, right now, the electrician measured out, there's like, I want to say 15 and no more than 18 inches from the curb to the base of the light. It is big enough to put Oh, I think the bollards were
4-inch diameter by 7 feet long.
7, yeah, I think 9 or 7 inches. So they can have ones that are small enough, yet strong enough to fit within that area. So that they're, they won't be right at the edge where it should cause any issues as far as plowing, Troy, or anything else. We've got like 15 or 18 inches in there, 7 inches in diameter.
I mean, so you're talking about up to 3 bollards around a light pole?
Around the light pole that gets hit the most, yes.
Certain ones, yeah.
I'm
Are they
looking at
gonna be
Google
green
Earth.
too, or are you gonna paint them
I'm
yellow?
trying to
or-
imagine.
So,
Yes,
I think she's saying
Yeah,
this
that's
one.
all included. They'll come with a sleeve that'll have, I believe the color.
They're gonna be
shows the shell.
They're plastic that slide
They-
over.
Yeah,
Right.
they will be, they're gonna be galvanized steel, like I say, that there was choices of cement and whatever, we went with this. Yes, there's going to be reflective coverings
She's
for
talking
them
about this one.
that will,
No.
They're gonna be
Wait a
cement,
minute, is this the entry?
galvanized
There would be
steel.
3 around that.
right, but they're gonna
One
be
inside,
cement
one
inside.
back,
Oh,
Because
yes.
that's the
Okay.
light pole that gets hit the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is on the request for yellow plastic sleeves with reflective material. I know, you don't have the request right in front of you. I do.
I'd like to get knocked out all the time.
It's a sharp shot. I'm sounding very New England. It's a sharp turn,
Yeah.
and we've had people miss it.
Yeah. They hit it when they're coming in or when they're coming out?
We don't know.
Yeah, good question.
It's not when the library's open. And you don't.
Yes, Debbie?
I don't know, I'm having a hard time hearing you, Karen, and forgive me, I don't know if you mentioned that, the issue why to want to protect them, also they're not making that, pole anymore. It's been discontinued, so what they've done at times, they've been able to, because of one pole coming down, we save it, and they replace it. We've used the parts for as long as we can. We were told with this last one that just went up, that there are no more parts or pieces that we can use if another one were to come down, which means we'd end up having to buy a whole new light. And because they're not made anymore, we could try to find something similar, but it wouldn't be a match. So more reason to kind of preserve what we've already got there going forward. And I know that's like aesthetics, but still it is, again, to preserve what we have,
Mhm.
to keep that look.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? I don't see anybody virtually. Anyone here have any comments? No?
I just thought of a question.
Mhm.
When the last pole had gotten replaced, even with them able to fix whatever, it cost the total of $7,000. We have a deductible. I wanted to ask the town, has your insurance gone up because of this? Because I know the poles have come down like 7 times. Is that an issue that you guys would be concerned about as far as preserving them as well? That either your insurance, obviously they didn't drop you, but, does your insurance go up when you submit something like that? That would save you guys money at your end? If we didn't take
I don't
steps to
know.
protect them?
Donna would be the person to know the answer to that.
We're in the second year of a 3-year rate lock. So our premium wouldn't be going up right away. Maybe over the long term, they would look at our losses, maybe.
I'm a much bigger loss at this point.
Yes, yes, you are.
Do you know how, so in that, it's been 16 years, so how many times, how often it's been hit?
7.
Well, no, right, but when? I know in the last 4 years I've been
If
here,
you
it's been
really want to
twice.
hear,
Yeah.
I would say 2 in nice weather and the rest in winter.
But how far back did the 7 coming down go?
In
All
years,
16 years?
Yeah.
actually, no, in the beginning, we didn't have an issue. It's kind of like the more close latter years, not in the beginning. And I don't know if people just weren't careful or no, it just, I'd say probably over the last 10 years, and that's being generous, that 7 have come down. We've had as many as 2 come down in one season, 1 year. 1 year, there was 2 that came down in 1 year.
And there are different lights every time.
Yeah, but there are a
Always
couple
at
that
one.
are constant, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, one is standing that has got a couple of good dents in it, which is still, you know, it's standing.
Okay. And anything else? All right, then I think we can close the public hearing on that one and move on to ARPA 39C, repair the library building structure emergency egress.
Okay, that's not a repair, that's an addition of an egress. Right now, there is one exit for the library offices where the director and the clerk's desks are. And yes, the National Fire Protection Agency and FPA rules say that those desks are within proper distance of a fire exit, but OSHA regulations insist on 2 accessible exits from an enclosed space. I'm not trying to sound obnoxious here, but I am currently working on a master's degree in occupational safety and health. I had to take an entire class on OSHA regulations. And OSHA Reg 191036 does say you must have 2 exits far enough apart. So there is in the back of the office area, the closet where the access to the roof is. And it could easily get a door that would go into one of the study rooms that would go out to the stacks. So this would be a new addition in the building. It's not a repair or a replacement. It's just something brand new to match OSHA regulations.
Okay. And Debbie?
We had the fire marshals out, the fire marshal, not marshals out. And he, I explained the urgency as far as, he apologized because it's been a while, he didn't get back to us and life happens and that's fine. But he did finally come out and he is working on it. He's well aware of the 3 exits that do exist from the first half of the building out, but there isn't anything from the second half of the building. We spoke about certain hazards that could happen. He checked the windows to, you know, like it's not something you can crank out all the way and put a ladder down, or, you know, we even spoke about possibly an egress, you know, maybe it should have a fire escape. We talked about what would have been back 16 years ago. Have things changed because times have changed? He agreed with that, but he was
OSHA
going to
regulations
look
date back to the
into.
1970s. That should have been put in when the building was put in.
Well, it is, he knows that it's like where we're speaking about is 3 stories up, not 1 or 2. So he is gonna look into the fire codes in the building, and get back to us. He explained how it would work, you know, where the door would be, what door, what wall. He talked about the exit lights, you know, if you saw, that's why the price has gone up. Because when we originally were talking about putting a door in, I'm sorry to say we didn't consider that, think of that, put that in consideration. So he came up with a lot of good ideas, explained how it should be done. And he's just gonna find out as far as, like I say, the coding. He said he would get it to me by the weekend, but I haven't heard from him as of yet. So that, I just want to let you know that we did do as you requested. We did bring the fire marshal to it, went through everything, got his opinion, and he's working on it for us and with us. And I don't have more information right now to share, but almost made it.
Okay. So the original, let me just call it back up. The original request was
5,400.
54.
Yeah.
After fire marshal came in, he said to increase it to 8,000
It hikes it up.
to account for inflation and for the electrical installation for exit lights.
Okay.
But it's been a concern of mine since I've been on the board, that if anything were to happen at that front desk, there is no place for the library employees to go.
Matter of fact, the fire marshal, along with that, mentioned that doing that door he felt a good thing to be thinking about. But there still is, once you're out that door, you still have the issue of only having 3 exits to the outside in the front of the building. So I don't know what he's gonna come up with a suggestion as far as that goes, but he was shared a concern that, okay, good, it gets you out of the back, but doesn't get you out of the building. So we talked about a fire escape.
Because that door is gonna put you back into the stacks.
Right, but.
So if you're avoiding something there,
Well,
your
there's
only
nothing that
other
would happen
exit
with
was
it,
back
if
to
somebody
where.
purposely, I suppose, does something there to.
The original idea was that if something happened, there was an exit on the south side, the north side, and the east side. And so one of those should be accessible. But for the people in the back, there was absolutely no egress except out towards the front door. Fire escapes, if we look into a fire escape, it's going to be outrageously expensive because of the way the building's built. It's a 2-story building built on a slope, so as Deb said, those offices are actually 3 stories up from the back. There was some discussion about possibly putting, in addition to the egress, a staircase downstairs where there are exit doors out as well. But right now, that's a lot to think about and a lot to get more information on. So right now, we're just looking at a second door for the people in the office.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Anybody online with a comment or question? Do have.
I just wanted to quote a couple things from the 1910.36, and it talks about a single exit route is permitted when the number of employees, the size of the building, its occupancy, or the arrangement of the workplace is such that all employees will be able to evacuate safely. The other part of that, under definition of an exit discharge, it must lead directly outside or to a street, walkway, refuge area, public way, or open space.
Right, that
So-
is true,
so it
but
wouldn't-
right now, we don't fit that first part. That there is not always a way to get out. Yes, a proper egress should go outside, but outside from there is 3 stories up.
Right, but what you're making is not an exit discharge, it's simply a door into the rest of the building.
Which is still needed in case something happens.
And I would point out too, virtually every other town building has similar, where the town clerk is and the tax assessor. There's no secondary way to get out that way.
But they're also still on the first floor. As I said, even if they wanted to like break a window and get out, they are 3 stories up. So there's
That would fit
really,
the definition of a secondary means of egress. Of breaking windows and jumping out.
that is not my idea of a secondary egress, but I'm just saying that if I needed to get out of the building, I would much rather be on the first floor than on the 3rd floor. Because really, there's no place for them to go.
Oh,
Except
you have it
out.
on your headphones?
So even though it's not an emergency egress to the outdoors, it still needs the light up exit light?
I was not aware I needed these exit light because it's not going outside.
Right.
That
You're
is
using it as
something this is something I just heard today.
Ah,
As a matter of fact, not today, half an hour ago. So,
Okay.
no, that's news to me.
mhm. Okay,
We were just looking for a second door for them to get out in case something happened.
right. Joan?
I don't think that getting out that door and into the stacks is a real serious issue. It's, because you could have an emergency and people would already be back in the stacks. Everybody just leaves that way. There really is plenty of room to walk that way and get out the front door. If you had a real serious issue with a fire in the front of the building, which probably isn't going to happen, the fire is going to happen right at the door going into the workroom. You've got a copier machine on one side with chemicals and electrical circuits, and you've got a kitchen on the other side with some of your electrical microwaves and things like that. So that's probably the good starting point for fire. And you just you have any problem, you're probably gonna see smoke before you get fire out of that anyways. You could walk out through that door and out through the front if you wanted to, and also have the desk to be able to call 911 from there if you had to. Once you get out there, you have the front doors to go out. People around the desk also have the door out through the children's area. So there are other accesses. I don't, getting into stairwells and fire escapes, which are deadly in icy weather, are just really have to be thought about before you do that.
Okay, any other comments, questions? About this one? I don't see anyone online. Okay,
Public is very quiet
well,
tonight.
I think we can close the public hearing for ARPA 39C and move on to ARPA 40A, library gutters and downspouts. And that original request was for $21,000.
Okay, the problem that we have is the gutters get overflowed. They create a waterfall out of them. They have been checked, they are clear, it's not that they're plugged. They simply, apparently, it's just gutters across the patio, but they have to cover the water that's coming off that section of the roof plus the two side roofs. Apparently, they're simply not large enough volume in order to maintain. And the situation is bad enough if it rains, but if it rains and then freezes, we have an ice skating rink in front of the library, which is a safety issue. So the request would be to replace those gutters from a 6-inch half round copper to a 6-inch K style to increase the capacity. So it wouldn't make the gutters any bigger, it would simply change the shape of them to allow them to increase capacity. I don't see a change in the cost in that one, so that looks like it's staying the same. Considering the fact that they're copper gutters, I'm surprised that there's no.
Okay,
Again, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing very well. It is a safety issue. It's not only with it becoming an ice skating rink in the winter time, but also in the, when you get rain, like torrential downpours, it actually is like a lake there. It is not just a puddle here and there, but you actually have water that covers the whole patio. What I've learned is that it's the volume of the water that is too much for the capacity of the gutter. And a lot of it has to do with the design of the roof. It's very vulnerable in heavy downpours and flash freezing. So it's a overflow flow of the water that's the issue. It's not even so much a building up with the ice, although with the ice, it does create called yellow icicles. We're hoping they're up there with the boom, not to get down because they're thick and they're big and they're long. And if you don't keep up with them, if it were to come loose or whatever, you could get killed probably with that. And that sounds like an over exaggeration. But for example, I have a picture of just the first snowstorm we had on December 12th, and it was 2 inches. And you can tell already that it's forming. So, and the heater does work for the gutter, so that's not an issue. We actually had talked about with our last ARPA committee meeting, the electrician and the gutter person suggested putting the heating elements, wiring and snow stops. And come to find out, when talking further to people about this in the gutter, they said that really wouldn't do anything. It's the issue of how much rain comes down, how fast, how much snow, whatever, it collects. It's a lot to do with how fast something comes down, how quickly or not it melts and then refreezes, and also, like I said, the design of the roof. So one of the questions were how important, I don't know if Karen Ann had addressed it. This is something that in our eyes, we feel is quite the emergency. I wish it could have been done prior to now, the weather is winter time, but, that would be something that should be done as soon as possible. And it could be done possibly it's not the downspouts, it's not the heating coils, it's just the actual gutter, installing a wider gutter so that it will hold what capacity it's getting from that.
Okay, any questions? Any comments from the public online or in the room? I'm seeing virtual hands.
Make sure they know.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for doing the camera thing. That was our big question was if there was a blockage. So now if there's new gutters, the water should go down and out the curtain drain and be taken away from the building, which will be safer and will protect the building. So now we know that, so that's good.
But it's still a 6-inch gutter.
It's still a 6-inch gutter, it's just a different shape. I will be perfectly honest with you, I don't know what a K-shaped gutter is. But it's still considered, it's still listed as a 6-inch gutter.
6-inch though.
My guess would be what they have is a 6-inch semicircle. My guess would be the kind of gutters I have on my house, which are more rectangular, is probably going to hold more. And that's probably what they're talking about. But like I said, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't know what a K-shaped gutter is.
So that you don't know the volume of water from the gutter you have now to what the volume of water for the new gutter would take.
No.
That's why you hire contractors.
Yeah, somebody's selling you something, if you're putting a 6-inch gutter on, a 6-inch pipe is a 6-inch pipe.
The
I was just asking Hope, our conversation we had, I understood that it was, yes, a different style, which addresses the issue that we're speaking about, but also that, and I know it's a 6-inch, but that it was wider. I don't know how that works out with all this shape and.
I don't know, but the quote we have simply says a 6-inch half round to a
Yeah.
6-inch.
We were told it was wider.
So it's
Yeah.
I see Ralph has his hand up and maybe he has some information to shed on.
I just wanted, can you hear me okay? Okay, to speak to Troy's issue, a 6-inch half round has a much smaller cross-sectional area than the 6-inch K shape, what's called a K gutter, which is more rectangular. So you pick up some volume or some cross-sectional area at the bottom corners that you wouldn't have on a half circle. So it's a greater cross-section of area, so it should carry a greater volume of water.
If somebody's gonna
That's it.
calculate the difference between a volume and a half circle and a volume and a rectangle.
And my guess is because of the slope, it comes down really fast and splashes up and over. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like,
So
yes.
so this kind of
that's what I
gutter
was
doesn't
going
allow
for.
for that to happen.
It's not as much that it's splashing over as that it's filling too fast and
Overflowing.
overflowing.
Or would it be that it's discharging too slowly?
No, we had that checked. That was one of the things the ARPA committee asked
But
was
that's what
to,
would cause the gutter to back up if the discharge rate was less than the incoming rate of the
but
rain.
we had a plumber come out and look and they said the discharge pipes are perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with the discharge pipes. So I don't know how you would change that unless you put in bigger discharge pipes.
Right, that's what he's saying. It's not that they're clogged. It's,
Right.
It's not the
Is
holding
that the
capacity of the
issue?
gutter that's the issue.
right.
It's how many gallons per minute, so to speak, are coming off of that roof, and how many gallons per minute are going down the discharge pipes.
And as Deb said, that's a matter of, how much rain we're getting and how fast we're getting the rain. I mean, there are gonna be times where the rain's coming down so fast that no matter what we do, it's not gonna discharge properly.
Right.
But even under normal rainstorms, we're seeing that it overflows.
Right, but I think what Stuart's saying is maybe it's not the gutter that's
No,
causing
I
the overflow. So you
understand.
take care to make sure the pipes, the downspouts and everything is clear, and that's great. But
But we don't have that information on what the discharge rate is. We would have to go ahead and then have somebody measure that. That we don't have.
I would have thought the contractor would have brought that up if that was an issue. And it didn't seem to be, so.
Okay. All right, any other comments or
What's the
questions?
gutter company gonna do with the copper gutters?
That was a question.
I'll make one gutter comment. There is such a thing as a splash deflector, so if you have a
Right,
valley in the roof or something like that, they could put a little, all it is a little angled piece of metal, they can rivet it onto the gutters, and that way
Diverters.
it won't go in the gutter and over the top and over the end. So,
but won't that back it up onto the roof? And
No,
not
no,
a
it is-
concern on the shingles or the roof?
they put it on the end of it, so if they know something is coming fast on the roof, like a little valley or something like that, sometimes the water will hit the gutter and then
Right,
roll
right,
right
right, I
out. They just
understand.
put a splash, they put a little deflector, they just rivet it on the end of the gutter. I had some put on my house for that after I complained to my gutter guy, I said, hey, it's overflowing there. Oh, he said, oh, I'll put on a splash deflector, so you just rivet it on, so somebody competent, your competent gutter person should be able to install those in high areas. Okay, done.
Perfectly. I just Googled it. It makes sense.
It makes perfect sense if that's the issue.
Yeah, if that's the
If
issue.
that is the issue, that it's simply splashing over, then that makes perfect sense. It would be a quick, easy way to fix it. But if it's that the actual volume is exceeding the volume of the,
But how does that even work with snow? Like, snow doesn't splash over. That might be okay with rain. How does that work? Do you know how that works with snow?
Doesn't work with snow.
It doesn't. with snow.
Things get plugged up with snow. That's why you have the
Oh,
electric
okay,
heaters,
so
right?
it's still
Put
gonna
the
be-
heat tape on.
Okay, so it might help one problem, doesn't help the other. Okay, yeah, thank you.
I think Stuart, your question was, what will you do with the old copper?
You said you had copper gutters. What do you plan to do with those?
put them in the basement with all the other extra stuff that we have in case there might be a use for them somewhere along the line.
Make sure they don't
Sell them to,
No, copper's expensive. We don't need them to take them and make a profit off of that.
Justin?
All right, any other questions? Comments? Okay, moving on to ARPA 40D, exterior window treatment.
Okay, and this is the last one for the library. It's just after 16 years, the largest windows face south and west, so they've been exposed to a lot of sun. They simply need to be repainted. They just need a little bit of cleaning up and new coats of paint put on them. The cost for this is expected to be about $55,000, and a lot of that simply has to do with the amount of labor that it would take to reach some of these windows. Because along the back of the building with the west-facing windows, we are talking about the windows are floor to ceiling on what is an equivalent of a third story on a sloping land in the back. So it's going to require scaffolding and a lot of other stuff that really ups the price. So I know $55,000 sounds like a lot just for painting window trim. But there's a lot of trim, but that's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is accessing that trim.
Okay, yeah, that was one of our questions was, was there other things involved in the, like replacing of any plastic pieces or anything else? But it didn't sound like it from the quote.
Yeah, no, at this point, it's not assuming that we would replace any sort of rubber that was there or anything like that, not for these windows. It's just really how do we access floor to ceiling windows on a third
Yeah.
story room when the ground is severely sloped.
Yeah.
Outside of that.
Joe?
Okay, Leo Desitos was out today looking at it again. It appears to him that there should be very little repair. That they seem to be pretty much intact. We've got to expect we're going to find a few corners here and there that will have to be repaired. Mostly it is just the idea of painting caulking when it needs the caulk. That kind of thing. So because it is a scaffolding job, it just comes the price.
Yeah.
I think that the board, the school building committee should come and take a look at some of the issues we have, so they know what not to do when it comes to like the roof and the gutters and all these things that could have been prevented with architecture, let's put it that way.
I want to thank the ARPA committee very, very much for allowing me to speak tonight, but we also have a library board meeting.
Right.
So Deb and Joan are gonna stay to answer any other questions you might have, but Hope and I are gonna take off to the library. Thank you
Okay.
guys very much.
Thank you, Karen Ann. Does anyone have any questions about this project?
Can I just make a general comment?
Mm-hmm.
I hear the same conversation in every building in this town. At what point are we gonna have a conversation about a facilities director in this town? Why are we expecting our library professionals to know about gutters? They're presenting a project, I'm presenting projects to you, but it's just something that I think everybody knows, but I don't know why we turn a blind eye to this. We expect the certain individuals to be experts on their buildings. Why we don't, when's the last time this floor was waxed? Is that Erica's job? This conversation baffles me. And it's not about someone not doing their job, it's just not their job. And if we didn't have this money, what would we do? Someone's got it, and it's not Troy's job, it's not Public Works, it's just, that's my general comment, is that, you know, why we have to become experts on heaters or roofs or gutters or windows.
And I have to say too, I comment on it, and you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'm learning myself a lot of different things, like for example, the type of trim, since we're talking about this, trying to get educated on what happened in the past and why this and that and not the other. At the time, 16 years ago, when this building was built, there was wood trim, there was pine and there was cedar. And there was also PVC, which was plastic. And I've got the different prices for each one at a time and what they are now. And it's amazing that to try to save a penny, and I'm all about saving pennies because they add up, but when we did do the building, we went with the least expensive, which was the pine, instead of going which the cedar, which would have lasted longer, or better still, if we went with the PVC, which would have been twice the price from what I understand, and I want to say only twice the price, we would not be spending money on ever doing anything maintenance-wise to it. We wouldn't have to strip it, sand it, paint it, get up there and have the cost of 3 stories high. So when it was thought about what we're doing with these windows that are 2-3 stories high, you know, how are we going to get them? How are we going to refinish them, repaint them, repair them, whatever might be needed? That was never considered. We were trying to save $1 and we went with the cheapest, was the least expensive trim wood at the time. And now it's costing us. It's not only going to cost us now, but also it's going to cost us in all the years ahead to do that. So that, you know, like it's kind of sad and too bad. And now we have this beautiful building and now we have to upkeep it. And I want to say it's only 16 years old, but then I have to say it is 16 years old and things do happen. And the issues that we're facing is not anybody's fault as far as not maintaining. You are talking about, and I will get it in writing from the people that who know about these things. You don't have to take it from me. That you know, you've got just the elements of the weather. You know, we were told that, you know, the south exposure is worse with the trim and faded and worn than the other exposure, the northern. So it's like, there are things that unfortunately weren't taken into account, perhaps. Maybe it was just all dominated by money kind of thing. It's just sad that it's a new building and it needs to be, and you guys have instilled that into me more than, you know, like, you know, what should be done and how often and whatever. And I get it. It's no different than when you have a home. I don't worry about that in my house. My husband worries about that. So, yeah, it's been a learning experience. You guys have been great as far as when going forward. How are we going to continue to take care of this stuff? How often do we do things? How many years out? You know, we're already looking into the roofing and whatnot. So, yeah, it's hard to know about all these things. I would have thought with a group of people that were doing a building when the library was being done, would have thought about these things. A lot of it's common sense, but you know, it's a dollar. When you don't have very much, you have to make do with what you have. We all do it.
Mhm. Oh, Ralph has a hand up. Ralph?
Thank you. Ralph Tullis, 47 Village Hill Road. I just want to echo what Mr. Stevens said with respect to facilities management. And Christina, I know you know this, when for your first term as first selectman, one of the recommendations that I whispered into your ear is that the town of Wellington needs a facilities manager, someone to track and make sure that maintenance that is beyond the skill set of the employees is done on a consistent and regular basis and is anticipated. And so we don't have emergency repairs where we're paying a premium to get work done. All of these things are easily anticipated by a person familiar with things like exterior finishes, things like trim, even PVC trim is susceptible to UV damage over time. So nothing is maintenance free. And if we had someone who was tracking all this stuff, then perhaps we can avoid this. And I'll get off my soapbox for now. Thanks.
Me too, sorry.
Budget season's about to start, Ralph, so I'm gonna remember those comments.
Yeah.
I'll be back to you for support.
Any other comments about the exterior window treatment project? Questions?
Can I ask one question? And this is to this project and those in general. Almost every project you brought us, I've noticed you say you're hearing today, it's more than the money you requested. Can your budget absorb those increases? Because you're hearing us say that we don't have enough money for every request that came through. So even if we were to say yes to yours, you're already saying you're short funding. Can the library absorb increases?
That's probably up to the Board of Finance.
No, can the library, if we gave you $8,000 for something that was now $12,000, can you absorb the $4,000 in your budget?
Well, our budget goes through the Board of Finance.
Right, but you have a budget right now. The dollars that you have available to you, do you have funds
Because
there?
our repair and maintenance budget is what, $5,000?
Okay, thank you.
So, I mean, it's not very big, and it's probably not very reasonable. But what, as Deb has said, is that there are other bits of maintenance that are in the budget here and there. So we have to sit down, and one of the things we have to do with budgeting this time
Oh, it's gonna
is
be
to
big.
pull out and know exactly what do we have for maintenance on it, other and under any other name too, what we have for that. But I don't know what the history is with the rest of the buildings or anything else. It's just never had anybody that knew anything about maintenance evidently. You know,
I'm just concerned that the amount you're asking for already, you're saying probably won't cover what you need. Where are you gonna get the rest of the funds for if we were to give you the money?
well,
I don't,
So you need to think about that
I'm
because
misunderstanding. Whereas we have upped everything. We're talking to the general contractor and a few of our vendors.
you made requests from us for $11,000. You can't just come in here and up it to 13 today, making the assumption that we're making that adjustment. If we don't know about that increase, if we don't give you that
Yeah,
adjustment.
Debbie did ask me like what to do, and I said, yeah, just come and tell if it's.
Right,
more,
tell
then
us, but if it's not, we're $17,000 short.
Right, so.
We
so now
don't
it
have
would
the
be
funds to give.
$20,000.
If everyone comes in here tonight and says, my budget is now more, I'm gonna ask them the same question. Can your current budget absorb the additional cost if ARPA doesn't have it? And that's a concern. I don't wanna give you
I'm gonna say,
21,000 and
I
you
don't
need
know.
28 and don't have it.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say, I don't know how that could be. Joe brings up the point that we've never had a large maintenance line item.
Right.
Yeah, and
No, and
that's the answer.
Right, and we know that's the answer, but we need to hear that. I need to know before I put you in a position to spend $28,000, knowing you only, and I'm making up that number, and that you only have 21,000, right? We have,
We're only gonna
we
be able
put
to do
you,
what you give us.
but if that's not the whole job, then that's there, we have to take some responsibility. So when we go to the decision making, that's something that we have to weigh into how we allocate these funds. I need to make sure the projects you have, you're adequately funded for. And if,
Yeah, that's,
and right now, I can say we're not adequately funded.
so are you saying that what we brought before you, you don't think are complete jobs?
No, I'm
No.
saying all of the items that are waiting to be funded, we are already $17,000 short of being able to give everybody what they wanted. If this board gave everybody what they wanted, you now know you need more than that. So that makes our number in the red even more.
Now, do you know how?
If you ask for $50,000 total and your total projects were $70,000, we've given you money for a job you can't complete. We have to weigh that into
Okay, I didn't
moving
realize
forward.
that was, until today, I understood that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, that was something that now would be the final price or cost or whatever that, what was before, only because our quotes came.
We
from
can make
June,
adjustments,
July.
Deb, but I'm saying we couldn't do that across the board. Phil's got a couple of items on here, EDC. If everybody's items, they need now more money than they asked, I'm gonna say to Phil, can your budget support the increase in those costs? Because I think we'd all think twice about giving you money to do a half a job. It wouldn't be responsible.
Yeah, I like,
That,
just, so if there's two jobs that are $5,000 each, and we only have $10,000, we're not gonna give you 5,000 for both of those jobs, knowing that you don't have the other $5,000. We're gonna
Makes
give you
sense.
10,000 to do one job.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah, and if Phil said I asked for 10,000, I now need 20, and I can make up the other 10.
No.
When we make our decisions, we could say he could support his whole project. So it's just another item of information we need as we go into deciding what we can and cannot fund. And I'm not gonna say support what we can and cannot fund, because we already know we're short funds.
and Jones?
If we don't have enough money, you want us to go into our budget to look for it. The town owes the building. Does the town go into its budget to find what else is needed?
No, the library budget support, but I'm saying, if I need to replace this room and my budget only has $30,000, I can't spend 70.
What I'm saying
It's just another piece of
is that
information we need to make our decision. So I need to know how the remainder of the money could, where it would come from. If ARPA doesn't have it, where would you go?
No.
Before we approve, we need to know, I want to know that the whole project can be supported. We want projects to be successful.
And
So-
Joan, I think maybe what you're asking is, if you needed another $4,000, what would you do? You could either use the rest of your maintenance budget if you have it. If you don't, then you can go make a special request to the Board of Finance mid-year, which does happen. It's kind of rare.
So the Board of Finance would be approachable for.
Right, but it would need to be in an emergency situation, which these things probably aren't, but you could put it in your plan for next year. So that's the other thing you can do. So if it doesn't have to be done tomorrow, then yeah, you wait till the next budget cycle and put it into the budget.
Is right. And I'm not saying based on decision, it's one more piece. As we look at money, I have to weigh all that into what can we adequately fund.
We had figured out for this.
So, okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess what we have given you tonight was totaling for the 10 projects. No, 5 projects, it was 10, cut in half, 5 projects are 105,000.
I don't know where we cut back on any of these. Hopefully, we will have money come back. How much money do you have anticipated that will not be spent that you've already allotted? Do you have any way of anticipating that?
So that's what we went through in the very beginning.
Yeah.
We had $290,000 in requests, but now there's probably another 10,000 that got added on from what you originally put in. So there's more like $300,000. We have anticipated $272,000 available. So 18,000 has to be cut somewhere. So,
I have an interesting question. So, don't lose a thought, Deborah. So we've put in 2 applications, which is, I know we've, in one of the last ARPA meetings, you said that a lot of things that we had approached you with aren't as important as what other people are asking for and needing. Did you take into consideration that, how much, say, no offense, Phil, but like how many people have asked and requested and put in applications for, and what their total amount was versus what somebody else is only asking for? Like, there's a lot of entities in this town that has taken advantage of the ARPA. The library is just one of many. I want to say we're only asking 105, and I know that everybody else pretty much has been probably that or more. Do you take into consideration as far as, because we haven't asked and aren't asking for a lot of money, that would be considered in the equation? Or does it have to be, you're thinking, well, it's just not important enough because somebody else's needs are more important, and just giving it to them and us not being considered? I'm wondering what our chances are as far as the consideration of how much money that 1.7 million is and how it's divvied up, where, and no offense to it's just, I'm thinking with the public works, like,
I mean,
and you get a truck for like 165,000,
Deb.
you can't do 5 projects for.
Deb, these requests started a year ago, over a year ago. And the first projects were approved at a town meeting that before this commission was even created, because it was some emerging things that were considered emergencies to buy. Or they were on the CIP list already for years, and it was a no-brainer to approve those. It's really been, it hasn't, we're not looking at the whole thing all at once right now. We're only looking at what's left, and you guys are on what's left. So that's what you're gonna hear us talking about, is how to figure this out.
I feel comfortable saying that I don't think anyone on this commission has said something wasn't important. But we only have as much money as we were given. We don't have more than that to spend. And we are, at this point in the process, we have more requests than we have funds. So we have to use whatever information we get from you, input from the public, and we have to make a decision on what can be funded. But I don't think anyone here has ever said these aren't important.
Oh, yeah, I haven't, you did. It has been said. And I think it came from you, Erica, and it's on tape, but that's not important. It's just, I was trying to say, how do we get a share of? When we missed the first opening, and it wasn't, if you didn't have the second opening with more money being returned and coming back, we wouldn't even be in this position.
No,
to ask.
that is not true.
You chose not to apply when we opened ARPA the first time.
But, and the other problem was the funding was on hold because we hadn't received the rest of the money from the state yet. It wasn't that we were waiting for the money to get returned. It was that we didn't have it yet. So we were on hold. That's all.
Okay, but it still was a chance for other people to apply at that point.
Right.
That's what I was
But
saying.
I think it's important to note that the
First.
library was available. You chose not to apply when everyone else put their request in the
No, that's a whole
beginning.
nother story.
But that's up to the library board. Everyone had the same ample.
In reading the ARPA, and I guess they've had discussions with administration, I don't know that part of it. It really looked as if libraries were not eligible for ARPA money.
But they always were. I don't know where that information came from. It didn't come from us. It never came from me. I specifically said it was okay. And people were arguing with me saying it wasn't, but
Right. Before this commission was created, I made it clear the library was
And when
available funds.
it really reads as if it wasn't available. Maybe the way it was worded was bad, and they were available. Who knows? And other towns have gotten ARPA money for libraries, so it's probably okay.
it is okay.
But that's why it didn't come in, first of all. Number one, number two, getting all of your estimates. That was a nightmare. Okay, so.
But Joan, do you see why it's important? Because they've been changing as time has gone on and more information has become available. It changes. And we do not want to put you guys in a situation where you start doing a project and you don't have enough money to finish it.
I
That's the whole
understand
point.
that. Yeah, I understand that. I think the message here is that we need to wrap it up. These people want to go home or, you know.
I also think it's important that the quotes aren't just because we want more information or we want to make you do more work.
Yeah.
We have a town ordinance that is a very clear purchasing process. And Donna will tell you, she's asked by Bill, myself, Troy, on a regular basis to make sure we follow that to a T. So getting that information is critical in making sure that the process is done correctly, especially when we're using, and any funds, but we're talking about using federal funds and we have to follow up every single process.
But I think at this point now, the library has to go back and look at some of its funds. You know, we have so much that is designated that we're really bound with. But let's go back and see if we can find some that aren't designated, that are significant enough. Usually those are little pockets that, you know, that are significant enough that we could finish one or two of these jobs if we couldn't get fully funded. You know, I mean, I think that, you know, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't want to set you up to fail.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't want to put the town in a position where we have funded something we didn't have the funds for. That's a no-no. And I couldn't get behind, and I'm sure our business manager on the other side of the table would struggle with that same kind of arrangement. We need to make sure that there's funding for projects before.
Yeah, so I think we have to look at that and see out of this, if we can scrounge up some money to even take over one of these or something. I don't know. I really don't know what's in there, and I've been asking for 6 months at least for a good accounting of all those funds that, you know, they come in and this is designated for library.
So we move 6 projects left to hear from, we need to move on.
So we know where it is, and I don't
Yeah.
seem to be able to get that, and I'm not sure exactly where you go to get it. But if we could get an accounting of all.
Yeah, but that's separate from ARPA. Like that's separate from what we can, and it's also separate from this public hearing. We can't
It's
talk
not
about that.
separate from the town because.
No, it's separate from this public
But it
hearing
is-
right now, so.
It comes down to the town, but we would need that in order to know if we have money to pick up ARPA. You see what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
trying to get a good.
But it isn't money to pick up ARPA either. It's for the projects. And that's the thing. There's many other places to get funding. So,
There is unsealed money that could be put towards these projects. And that's,
Correct.
seems to be a little difficult to get a hold of. And I don't know why, and I have no idea what the flow is.
We'll talk about
Okay.
that after this meeting.
yeah.
But, you know,
I'll be happy to talk about that after. This
yeah,
meeting.
just if
Okay.
somebody can put a bug in somebody's ear that we would
We'll make
like,
sure we understand what
Yeah.
you need and.
that would be very nice. And
Okay.
then we can apply funds to
Right.
these, and then we can say to ARPA, we only need 4,000 for this instead of 8. We've
Right.
got the other 4, okay? We
Okay.
can work that out,
All right.
okay?
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. That's where I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
Thank you very
and-
much for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments for this one before we close this public hearing? Anyone online? I don't see no.
Okay, folks. Thank
Okay,
you for
All
all
right.
your hard work,
No,
folks.
thank you. Thank you. We'll let you know if we make any decisions later tonight or when we have our next meeting, when that will be, because we don't
Whenever
know.
you get it. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you, and we'll work on it, okay?
okay, thanks. Moving on to ARPA 41, stove for the senior center. I don't see anyone here for that. To refresh everyone's memory, what that one was, is senior center is looking for $6,000 to replace a stove that they currently cannot turn on because it has a pilot light and, well, they can turn it on. They have to get on the floor and crawl
Manually.
and
like that.
manually light it, which has been an issue over the years. And probably not the best.
Can I speak in favor of it?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, John. Yeah, and I think the estimate they had was just shy of $6,000, and that included all the installation and the parts, so,
If I recall, we asked them about selling the one they had, and I think they felt confident that it still had value.
mhm.
Probably not if, just our seniors were utilizing it and some of its challenges, but that they thought their intention was to put some of that money back into offset the cost. The 6,000 was enough to get it done, so that would be some money being returned if they
Mhm.
sold it.
May not have the answer, but did they try to get it fixed?
I think it works, right?
Yeah,
It's not an issue
it's
of
not
it
an
not
issue of
working, it's a
working.
safety issue. They have difficulty getting down on the ground, lighting
A
it.
pilot light typically is either lit all the time or has other means of ignition. Why is the pilot light out?
I thought he said he had to take like one of those long matches.
Yes.
Oh, well, I understand that too. If it's out, that's how you
Yeah.
need to light it. Why is it out? Is the orifice?
I think we were here for the presentation. It was pretty solid in terms of
I don't think
I
I.
don't know that I remember him talking about that.
inconvenience and safety.
No, I understand the difficulty of lighting it, but most gas
Yeah,
stoves
Stay lit.
have either a pilot light that runs all the time. So when you turn on the burners, it lights, or it has an electronic means of ignition.
It definitely didn't have an electronic means of ignition, so we knew it didn't have that. Why it's not lit all the time, it has to be lit to start, and I don't recall that we talked about that.
Gas stoves without electronic ignition are very, very simple.
I think it was a good presentation. We should consider it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it didn't,
It's a senior center.
I'm reading there,
It can't be on their.
Oh, no,
balance.
I don't want them under there doing it, but if it's a.
yeah, I think it was,
$300 Repair to fix it.
I think it
or
was-
$6,000.
Yeah, no,
I don't think it was better being fixed, I think it was just a poor choice of equipment to start.
Yeah, that's what they
I
said,
think that's
and,
what it came down to.
and they've definitely like looked at it over the years, different people have considered it. It's not a new thing, it's been this way since day one.
And it's old, right?
So, well, now it's,
It's gotta be at least 10, maybe.
it probably goes back to when the building was built, so yeah, 15.
I mean, we have one of the firehouse that we got used 40 years ago.
Wow.
It still works, but there has a pilot
Definitely
light.
make things
Used on
better
the
now.
pilot light. Well,
Yeah, that's, maybe if we don't make decisions tonight, that's something you can ask them and look into, just to give us the answer.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that, I just don't remember them talking about it.
That's all I have.
Anyone online have anything to say about the stove at the senior center or questions? No. Okay, moving on. The ARPA 42 Center School Playground resurfacing or surfacing for $90,000.
So this is the board surface. This is probably of the projects that the board has, this is the moving target one. There's no current bid because they won't give us a bid and guarantee their work because the escalation, simply because this would be a late spring project. You have to be able to clean things out, and it's got to be, I believe, 40 degrees to go pour the surface. I think there's kind of two possibilities. If you were to approve the 90,000, we would work within that 90,000 to pour as much as we could. The secondary option of that is if the board would approve some of their non-lapsing fund or end of the year budget money to do any additional work. And this is only for center school and the two sections. It does not include the swing set. It's really the two playscape areas. And again, the big issue is that with this is I think we've all spent a lot of grant funds really around health and safety around COVID, and didn't do a lot of kind of fun things for kids. And that was what we were approached by parents to say, can we do something that's really for kids? And that's why this came in. It was the primary request when it came in. We've since added a couple others, but that's really where this is at. We would have to go back out and solicit bids if this were approved and work with that guy over there with Public Works. This could be, some of our custodians and staff getting out there to do some of the manual labor. The prep saves us a lot of money. So just trying to do some of that work, but it's because of the prices and inflation, this is a moving target.
What type of surface do you have there now?
So there's a rubberized poured surface that's older on one part of the playscape. I'm not real sure how old it is, but it's been there pre-Colin McNamara days. I don't know if you were on the board when that was done.
I think it was before,
It's
before my board days.
but it's not accessible. It's kind of weird. Because it's not in typically what you do is you put the poured surface down so you can use it in winter, so it's still fall protection. But it's not in sections where you get fall protection. It's like, it ends at the edge of the equipment. It didn't have a lot of logic to me. I'm not sure why. Whereas now we have the wood chips in there and that's our fall protection. As soon as the ground is frozen, your fall protection ends and you have to close the playscape for the winter. This would allow you, as long as you don't have, 6 inches of snow, to keep it open. Because this doesn't freeze up, this type of material, you can still use your playscapes.
Can you use like a snow blower or something on it to get the snow off of it?
As long as you keep it,
Keep it up.
yeah. Yeah, you don't want
Yeah, no, right,
Yeah.
yeah, but if you said
it. The
it.
kids can shovel it,
Shovel.
honestly, that sounds silly, but they love shoveling.
Good
things like
OT,
that.
OT
And
kind of.
once you get the surface dry and it's not a sheet of ice, that's the reason you would have it closed.
You can take a shovel to it without
The plastic shovels, yes.
plastic shovel.
Yes, I wouldn't be digging in with a metal shovel. We tend to go through probably $75 worth of kids shovels each winter. They just love shoveling in the snow and
But not at home.
clear
How about
paths.
at work?
They clear part of the blacktop now because of the carports. And not
Make
because
their
we
homework
don't do it,
shovel?
it's just because they like doing it. It's just something they have fun with.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a question. We have an active school building committee that's moving to referendum to a school option that does not include moving forward with center school. That could be up to 2027.
Yeah,
This $90,000, if, would you still move forward if we moved out of center school in that project where?
I think, and my personal opinion, this is not the board speaking, because I don't know what they would say, honestly. My feeling is that it's a lot of money if you are going to tear down that building. If that building continues to be used as a town facility, boy, it would be nice to have another park in this side of the town. And yeah, you would do that project. This is a project that you could easily do in summertime. So if this was contingent, and I'm not sure when you have to do your funds by, but if it was contingent upon, hey, if there's a positive referendum and it's not gonna be center school, and, it's not gonna be, center school's not gonna be used as a school, and the town has an answer for what that building would be, if there is an answer, then we could move forward at that point, but.
I just didn't know if your board had talked about it, and so I think it's important for us to.
No, they haven't. I mean, I think they'd see it as we'd get some years of, use out of it.
Is it something that could be relocated?
No,
No.
once it's poured, it's all like, it's supposed to be level, but it meets the little, whatever grade you have there. And once it's in, it's in.
I think the challenge for us is if we know a project, what we don't know is the use of center school.
Right.
So I absolutely believe it would be beneficial if that stayed a town facility
Right.
without questions. And I hear the parents' concerns to, let's try to use some funds that directly touches kids. And it's kids, not just in school, but in our community, because they can use this all the time. But I think it's probably a question worth asking, that maybe some of the public are thinking the same thing.
This has been on CIP. I think it just gets bumped to year 5, because there's always heating issues, there's always roof issues, there's always, maintenance repair issues that just unfortunately take precedent over something that's, an extra. This is a bit of an extra, and it's an extra for kids.
What's the life expectancy of this product?
Usually it's 20 years, as long as it's maintained. Like, you can put new sealers on and you can fill cracks if there's ever cracks. That's your kind of lifeline. It can last longer. It depends on if trees fall on it, what other debris you have. If it's, if you have moss growing on it, things like that, you have to do, just like anything else, you gotta take care of it.
As I recall with the wood chips, those had to be renewed periodically as well.
Every couple of years, we bring in a boatload of wood chips and Public Works, and it helps us get out there and we spread them all over, because you gotta have a certain depth. And that's what the fall protection does. And that's, I don't know, a few thousand in wood chips every couple of years and that's both schools.
Okay, any questions, any comments?
Anyone online?
Oh, somebody is, Arthur Christensen, see your hand up.
Hi, Arthur Christensen. Can you hear me okay? I have new headphones. I want to make sure they're coming through. Okay. Good evening, Arthur Christensen, 14 Birch Meadow Lane. For the sake of brevity, I will only be speaking once, but I'm speaking in support of all three of the items being presented by Phil tonight for the kids at Center and Hall Schools. So Phil, if I steal your thunder for the next two items, I apologize. I want everyone to remember what these funds were originally for, and that is to address the continued impact from the COVID-19 outbreak. What group of people were most affected by COVID? The kids. The kids who missed over a year of school with a feeble attempt to teach them virtually. The kids who spent the next nearly 2 years in masks, not being able to see the faces of their teachers and their peers. And what group has received the least amount of money from this committee? The kids. Sure, the hall band room got a new AC and the summer camp was subsidized, but those expenses were a drop in the bucket compared to what some groups in the town got. How many departments in this town had their hands out for these funds without any issues related to COVID? The worst part is some of the highest funding requests went to these areas. These funding requests, however, are a chance to give a little something to a group who has actually suffered hardships during the pandemic. I have subbed in center numerous times and done my fair share of recess duty, and I know how much the kids love to be outside and how important physical health. More importantly, after they get some energy out, they are more focused, they listen, and they are better learners. Funding a project that would allow these kids to possibly be outside all year should not even be a question. In addition, giving them new equipment to play with instead of half-deflated kickballs, broken high-lie cestas, and bent frisbees should go hand in hand with a resurfaced playground. The amount being proposed for this project is small, but it's nearly 10 times the amount of standard budget for recess equipment, and that would open up a whole new level of equipment for the kids to have fun with. Finally, the last request would be used to bring in external education groups to provide the kids with fun and informative learning experiences, and that is a major win. Phil mentioned on a previous meeting an example of this being a portable smokehouse where the kids would learn what to do in a fire emergency and actually get to perform the steps. Things like this would provide tremendous life lessons and learning experiences for students of all ages. As I said, as a parent, I am in full support of all these requests for our kids, and I would like to thank Phil for putting these requests together, and I hope this committee will provide the funding for the kids in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just for the record, Arthur was the one that came up, was the one that I acknowledged that we need to do something big for kids, and it just was like an aha moment for me. So thanks
Okay.
again for doing that.
Great. Anything else? No? All right, we can move on, Phil. The next one, ARPA 43, recess equipment.
Yeah, this is a fun one that's really student driven. The idea behind this is, again, just to really give the kids a budget and work with their administrators, work together and identify some things that they can have for the playground. Things to put out there. Obviously, we'll talk to them about things that are gonna last a little bit longer and not just get some of the things that just go out one time and break. But this would be driven by kids, and they've talked about things like potentially doing a survey for some of the kids at launch to vote on things. I'm not gonna drive any of that. I would leave it in the hands of the administrators and the groups of students driving it. The administrators there really just to help them work the budget. So it's a small amount of money, but again, power and making some choices and understanding why that's why it's there.
Well, it's been a couple of years since I was intimate with all the board budget. How much annually do you spend on this kind of equipment?
Minimal,
100?
less than, I mean, it typically comes out of the principal's account. If there's any gift money that's in the student activity, that's where they, you know, we'll get some things sometimes, and I think this is what Arthur is alluding to, is sometimes the PE budget, which is like $600 at center school, he'll send out the old kickballs and get some new ones for the gym, and that's what's out there.
Would you spread this out over, I think this is a great idea. I'm just curious. Would you spread this out over the couple of years you have? Or you think they would probably just go?
Honestly, I would
Up
let
to
the
them.
kids drive that. If they wanted to see a whole bunch at first and, you know, set some parameters to take care of things and put things away, like that would be part of it. If they said, no, we want to make this, you know, every month we're gonna add a new item, let them drive it. The
I'd love
more
to
they
be
drive it, the more exciting I
A
think.
fly
it is
on the
for them.
wall of your center school kids budgeting and planning. That's, I think that would be fun. So thank you. Yeah. The discussion I can hear in my head.
Yeah, it's good. The middle school too, they would be excited to
Yeah.
know that.
Okay. Any questions, comments on that one? All right, moving on then to ARPA 44, extended learning opportunities.
Yeah, so this is, if you don't know, field trips and on-site visitors are so expensive. I mean, a half-day workshop can be $5,000 for some of these programs to come in. It's just unbelievable. But some of these programs are so powerful. It's what a student, you know, you'll talk to an EO Smith student and they'll say, hey, are you still doing X? Like I remember we brought the smokehouse in. Are you still doing that? Those are, again, this would be student driven. Let's connect to our curriculum. What are some of the programs we have? I gave you some of those samples. The smokehouse is one. And if you've never seen it, it's incredible. The nature's classroom can go, we can send out or we can bring them in. The New England Science and Sailing Organization has some absolutely incredible opportunities, again, both in and out, and easily connected to curriculum, so it's not just something separate, but really hands-on, something that's unique for students. And so this would have the $10,000 for each building. And again, student driven.
How far do you think 10,000 will take you?
So I don't know. And the reason why this is important is I gave examples. If students decided, hey, we want our entire $10,000 to be applied to multiple things with the New England Sailing Group, let's let them do that and figure out what that looks like. If it was, you know, each month we want a different presenter to come in, you know, is it Horizon Wings? Something like that. Like that's something, it's meant to impact a lot of kids though, not like one classroom, if that makes sense. So those are the types of programs we looked at. So I think, again, the purpose of these dollars is really around student-driven choices with guidance of, you know, teachers and administrators. So, you know, putting some things out there, letting them do some research and do the budgeting. You know, could we do 3 on-site and 1 big trip down to the coast? Those are things that they would be responsible for planning.
Okay.
Any questions about that one? No? Okay. Thank you, Phil. I
Thanks.
think that's all of your items. Yeah, all that's left is ARPA 45 from the Economic Development Commission.
Mike just popped on.
And Mike just popped on. I think it might be perfect timing. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how's everyone?
Good. Are you able to present the for ARPA 45?
Yeah, so I think that given the fact that, and John said he was signing on as well. Did you skip forward to ARPA 46 or did I miss that?
No, we didn't. Did you want us to skip forward to 46 first?
Yeah, I think that John should sort of represent what the EDC is asking for with that one. And if we could go out of order.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So let's open the hearing for ARPA 46, E-Code 360, which is a joint project between EDC and the town clerk.
So this was, something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago and I submitted. Basically, it's actually on behalf of the land use department. So it would cover planning and zoning and inland wetlands predominantly. But basically, it provides for the codification of all of the town's regulatory documents through planning and zoning. So the zoning regulations, the inland wetland regulations, the town's timber harvest regulations, and also the town's ordinances. We would work with General Code, who is basically a vendor that develops the ICC building codes and pretty much all the codes that you'll see in the nation, and go through a process of regulatory review to determine any conflicts with state statute or case law, et cetera. And basically identify any of the gaps that we have. I know our regulations reference ordinances that the town never adopted, driveway ordinances and other types of things. So we would identify the gaps in the regulations, identify any inconsistencies with recent case law, the misuse of terms, and then go through the process to fix those. And then when that process was finished, we would basically migrate all of the documents, all of the regulatory criteria and language to an online platform. So all of the ordinances, regulations, et cetera, would be online and accessible via mobile phone. It's adjustable based upon what your comfort is of being on the computer, and allows people to download and search and share and send. So it just makes the document or the documents more accessible overall. And that's really a one-time process. We would go through that codification project, identify all those issues and any things that need to be rectified and fixed. And then this would not be something that we would need to do every 2 years, let's say, or every 5 years. So it'd be sort of a one-time project.
Okay.
Mike, can you remind us, was there an ongoing operating cost, so an ongoing budget cost to maintaining that database?
So once the website or the online web tool goes live, the operating cost is approximately $1,200 a year. I think that based upon some other savings and some regulatory stuff that we currently have budgeted in the land use office, most of that we can probably absorb.
Okay.
Okay.
I think if COVID taught us anything, it's making as much possible accessible online as possible. That's really thanks to Mike's tech savviness.
Yeah.
We were able to pivot quickly during COVID so that residents had access to just about everything they needed between there and land records. So.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this one? Okay, then I think we can close ARPA 46, and I see John has joined us, so let's open ARPA 45, the strategic plan for economic development for $60,000. John, do you want to talk about it? Yeah.
Sure, thank you. So for the record, my name is John Gaskowski. I work with Mike D'Amato as a partner in Tyche Planning and Policy Group, and we provide economic development coordination services for the town. Have worked with the Economic Development Commission in the prior request and successful funding from the ARPA funds over the last 8 months or so to create and fund the BRIG program, the Business Resilience and Innovation Grant, where we successfully got about $230,000 or $240,000 out to small business owners and nonprofits to help them recover from the effects of the pandemic, as well as to make their businesses more resilient. So we thank the ARPA Commission for that funding and for helping us develop that program. We had originally, with that the ARPA allocation from the first program, from the BRIG program, had requested $300,000. As I noted, we did not spend that on and have prepared to return between $60,000 and $70,000 back to the ARPA project, and had conversations with economic development as well as many other stakeholders in town, that the town needed to have a little bit better information as well as direction for how it wanted to grow. And as we saw with some recent controversial planning and zoning applications, the town is not all on the same page relative to the types of businesses, the types of economic growth it wants to experience, exactly where it wants to do that, what the impact of those different types of growth would be. So we thought it would be a good opportunity, particularly with some of this potential money, ARPA money available, to step back and do some strategic planning. And that is the request that we are placing this evening, which would do basically 3 big chunks of activity through an outside consultant that would be managed by ourselves and the Economic Development Commission, to do first an economic development market analysis for Willington, because this is a really important bit of ground truthing and objective market analysis to understand the types of businesses, the scale of businesses, and the location of likely businesses that would find Willington attractive to their market type. And obviously, larger scale warehouses has been one that attracted interest. Obviously, the town has had very mixed feelings about that, but we want to know what other types of business and industries at what scales would be appropriate or would be possible. And then to do, based on that information, the second piece would be to do 3 build out scenarios with all different alternative development intensities. And that would also incorporate the development costs and the necessary infrastructure. So for instance, again, I'll use some of the warehousing distribution as an example. Would have required, one of those uses might have required significant installation of public water lines for fire prevention as well as potable water, which is probably a 7 or 8 figure price tag to do those infrastructure upgrades. However, if you do those infrastructure upgrades, you can achieve all kinds of other development aims. If you put in water lines or sewer lines or high-speed data lines or something like that. So we would run, as part of this project, different development scenarios that would look at not only the types of development, but also the associated costs and benefits that would go with those build-out scenarios. And then the third deliverable would be a consensus economic development strategic plan, and that would not only be based on the analysis that was done in the first 2 steps, but also a really comprehensive stakeholder process where we would be talking to planning and zoning, we'd be talking to conservation, to the Board of Selectmen, to the Board of Finance, to the Board of Education, to business owners, to really understand what types of development, where that development should go, according to you, the stakeholders of the town. And putting all of those things together would come up with a direction that then the EDC and ideally other groups like planning and zoning can help move forward and implement. And so that is probably, in a far too long-winded thumbnail, the project that we're looking to undertake.
Okay. Any questions? No. I have a question. If we didn't have the full amount to fund, is this project scalable where it could be broken out into phases?
Yeah, definitely. And it's also it's scalable in terms of generally when you hire consultants, when you do a big project like this, the most expensive thing is meetings. And so if we found ways to have either somewhat fewer meetings, more efficient meetings, do things with online surveys or do things more remote, we can kind of drive that number down a little bit and tweak the scope to make it a little bit more efficient. But I think we want to keep those deliverables the same, but I think we can play with the scope to make it a little bit more efficient if needed.
Okay. And there have been different studies done over the years, maybe not necessarily this exactly, but I know that there was some market analysis stuff done. but it might have been part of the South Wellington project that I'm thinking of. So would you take a look at all of the previous things that have been done and so you don't have to reinvent some of that wheel?
Right, exactly. And there are updated, you know, a good economic development consultant, and actually something that when we first started working with the town a couple of years ago, subscribed to a data service, basically a market data service, where you could get these different reports. And so a lot of that baseline data is able to be captured either by existing studies, as you said, or relatively efficiently through, you know, existing available, you know, census data, market data that's sort of available on a subscription basis. So yeah, we can, and it's a lot more current. You know, the South Wellington Village was done, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. And you know, certainly as we, you know, even in the last 3 years, the market conditions have changed drastically. So we'd want to refresh that stuff.
Okay. Anything else?
I think one of those plans to look at is the POCD to make sure they don't conflict with each other as well. You can't have one town document that says we want this amount of growth here or not have it, and then another one on your EDC that says, oh, we can do this, this, and this, and then they kind of throw papers at each other.
Right.
Almost by the wayside.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. The POCD is a really key foundational document for a project like this.
And what year are we in the POCD now?
It was 2018.
So it's so we got another.
You're about halfway in.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, there's also not to overstay my welcome, but there's nothing that says the POCD can't be updated more frequently than 10 years. It doesn't have to be 10 years, you adopt it, locked it in, it's in stone, unchanging. Because again, it's a 2018 plan prepared, you know, probably largely in 2017. None of COVID happened. None of these things have happened. And so the world that we lived in 2017, 2018 is incredibly different than the world we're living in right now. So sort of re-looking at some of those things is certainly worthwhile. But I completely agree that the POCD is a really important touchstone.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from anyone? I don't see any virtual hands up. Anybody out there have something to say about it? There's nobody here. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, John.
All right. Thank you for the time.
We'll close that public hearing now. All right, and that concludes all of our items on the public hearing list. The next item would be possible action on some of these funding request submissions. So it is on the agenda to do it. I think it's been our practice to not make decisions on the night of the hearing.
Yeah, I don't see any of these projects that are very timely that need to be done in the next, or authorized in the next few weeks, so.
Yeah, which is the other question I have though, is when is our next meeting? Because I was asking Kelsey,
get back to you.
She might have actually.
So we talked about, I don't know how much she communicated with you Mondays here. It's the first Monday in a while.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We were looking at, because next Monday is a holiday, Monday, the 23rd. And so that's still 2 weeks before, because we've got kind of the extra Monday in January.
Yep.
So that would give us
Monday the 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
That worked with everyone instead of the 16th.
Does that work for all of you?
The 23rd.
Okay, then
I have one question, and I don't need the answer now, but before the next meeting, perhaps. Out of these requests from A through K under the public hearing today, what is the dollar amount that we have to cut from that list based on available cut or delay?
Yeah.
Knowing that there may be some more money coming back later.
Let me just tell you exactly, because we closed that one project and it's not in my tracker.
175.
Yeah. But if you look at your tracker, I don't know if you have that, the white number in the middle of all the colorful cells that says 156,928. That's the amount that we had before we added the 975. So it's that plus 975. So let's just say it's 158 for So that is what we can appropriate right now. Unless, or what we'll be able to appropriate on the 23rd, unless at the 23rd, there's some other closed projects that will increase it. So one of those projects might be the EDC project, which is the big one, which we're thinking $60,000 will come back from. The orange number is 115,000. That's the amount that we expect, like with that 60,000 would be included in that. So, so basically there, it's almost like we have two tranches again. We have what's available now to appropriate, and then there's what's going to be able to be appropriated after that. And,
We have nothing drastically changes between now and when, say, Troy's generators put in.
right,
They don't
right,
find some.
right. And
Yeah.
yeah, so.
So in our next meeting, we could authorize up to 158,000
Mhm.
for projects that can go ahead.
Yes,
And I think of these orange numbers, the only one that is really going to be set in stone is the 70,000. Coming back from EDC, because they only had 230,000 worth of
yeah,
brig funding, and we're just waiting for the contract for one, and the rest of them have all been paid out. So when that comes through and that check is done, we'll be asking Donna to move that forward to close.
yeah. And that's probably sooner than later, right, Donna? Like,
It's when we get the contract from that business.
yeah.
That's
so-
what we're waiting for. So
So
they've
it-
been kind of quiet. So we're gonna, Kelsey, I just
Don't
went
they
through
want their
those.
money?
Yeah. We had a couple lingering, we just put one more through.
Huh, that's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I don't want, I just want people to understand. That's what I was trying to explain earlier too, is even if we don't appropriate it on the 23rd of January, it doesn't mean it's not going to be in March or April, or whenever these funds come back. But we don't have enough money to give everybody what they wanted. We're about $18,000 short.
And we probably have two options with these. One is to authorize the payment going forward, actually three choices. The other would be downright say no and take it off the plan.
Mhm.
And third, hold on to it for, as some more money trickles back in and
Right,
afford it that way.
yep. That's I think what our three options are. So,
I'll go do my homework and,
yeah, and
go down
one
the list
thing,
and see what you can spend.
as we were sitting here, one thing that was mentioned earlier too was getting at what the proportion of the funds that have gone to the different groups have been, and I'm gonna try to do the math on that, but the rough math, here's the rough math. Our total budget last year was basically $19 million. The ARPA funds, $1.7 million. For argument's sake, the Board of Ed's budget is $9 million. It's about 48% of the total budget. And if they were to get 48% of the ARPA funds, that would be $828,000. They did not get near that, and they're not even asking for near that. The library's percent of the overall budget is 1%, and that would equal $17,000. So using the argument that, proportionally, they should only get $17,000, which I think is definitely, not gonna happen. So, less than that. So, I don't think that's it's one way to look at things. It's not the way we have been looking at things, but if people were to look at things that way, it's not even true. So.
I know I looked at the projects, right? We had a huge onslaught of applications in the beginning.
In the beginning.
And we had more money than we had projects. So we were able to weigh the projects fully without question on the merits of the project, not weighing them. I don't
Right.
think we weighed them out against each other. And I wasn't saying, do you need that more than you need that for your program, or Stuart needs that? It was weighing it against itself. And I think the library, I want the folks in the library to hear us when we say that. We're weighing projects against the merits of the project. And that's why we're asking so many questions about them. Now we're just in a different situation. We could have been in that beginning. Had they put in their request from the beginning, we may have been closer to our total 1.7 million from the get-go. Some groups waited because they saw there was more money and came back for some things. The library waited till the end. So it's not that we, are saying another project is more important than that project. But we have to look at things in a little bit of a different scope now, because we can't say yes. We can't say yes and no, we can fully fund every project. It was easy to say, yes, Jenny, we can give you all the money for summer camp, because we had it. We had the money that far exceeded those requests. And now we're just in a different boat, so we have to take a balance of items to help us decide. And for me, one of those is, if we give you part of the money, can you complete the project? That's an important thing for us to ask. And, Jenny asked for, $5,000 for a fully funded summer camp, and I see you can have 5. We're setting her up to fail because she doesn't have the rest of the funds. That was my point with that question. I think people need to know how we're making decisions. We just need a little bit more information now as we're getting closer to using all these dollars.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Well stated. They
Yeah.
didn't like it, but well stated.
No, and I don't,
It's a factor of
I
where,
think-
where we are, it's the end, it's a little bit of money, and everybody wants their projects approved. So this is where the rubber meets the road. You gotta make best decisions we can.
If we had $2 million from day one, we would have been asking all of these questions from then. And I think even early on, we probably did, Stuart, if we give you X dollars for an ambulance, can you fund the rest of it? We talked about those things. What's the implication to an annual operating budget? Can you withstand that? And to the library, they're gonna have to answer, can they continue to maintain what now will be repaired, and have to give them a different look at how they budget for their maintenance? I hope so.
And the inflation, especially in the last 6 or 8 months, is killing the quotes.
Yeah.
That, one projects we just finished, things tripled in price. It's not the 5 or 10 or 20% per year, tripled in, 9 months.
Those vendors probably the only one that's brutally honest that said, I'm gonna give you a quote, but that's good today.
Even small
In a
quotes
month
that
from
we
now,
get
that's
for the
nothing.
firehouse, they're only letting them sit for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They said, normally it would be 60 days or 90 days, and now it's a 2-week quote. So I understand the difficulty of getting prices at one point in time, and then it just keeps changing and changing.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
It's a problem.
Well, anyone present to speak? I think there's a few people online. I don't have my glasses. Oh, they're in my head.
They pop their hands up.
Oh, welcome to, that's good.
Is Steph Summers' hand up, or is that the?
That is
Oh.
my cursor hand.
It was the cursor.
Just the
All right, so I don't think we have anyone out there present to speak. So in that case, I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We're adjourning then. Thanks, everyone.